Welcome to Guns, Guns, Gear, and Guns with Gary Gunderson. I am Gary Gunderson. The Tulsa, Oklahoma Wanenmacher Gun Show is said to be the largest in the United States. But is it worth it? It is huge. It is in a giant, climate-controlled expo center, and the website claims that they have over 4,200 tables that would stretch for more than 5 miles if placed end to end. And having been there, that is a believable statement. If you divide all 18 hours of the show that's open over Saturday and Sunday by the number of tables, you would have less than 15 and a half seconds at each table. I walked through the entire show, and it took me around 4 hours, and that's not even a fair assessment of the size, because that included me fast walking maybe half of it, and only stopping at things that really piqued my interest because I was worried I would not have enough time to get through the entire show. I arrived on Sunday and saw a few vendors begin packing up around noon, even though the show ended at 4. By the time I reached the last table at the end of the expo center, a fair bit of the tables had already packed up most of their items. So first bit of advice is to go on Saturday and maybe even plan to spend both Saturday and Sunday there, because there's a lot to see. And of course, like most gun shows, there is no rhyme or reason as to where vendors are placed, so you can hop from milsurps to a table of Winchesters to modern firearms, etc. The Expo Center is divided into 2 levels, with this being the view from the upper portion onto the lower portion, and there are more tables in the upper portion than in the lower portion you can see here. There are plenty of food vendors and restrooms around, so there weren't any big lines for those, which is definitely convenient. They had several auction houses like Rock Island Auction with booths that had cool items on display that are part of upcoming auctions. Of course, that meant you couldn't purchase those items at the show. And there were some things that were just not for sale on tables where everything else was, which was a little confusing. But there were several tables set up as informational displays with some pretty good information and examples that were of high quality, and those were mostly situated in one area. Other than that, it was a pretty typical gun show, but with a larger selection with all types of vendors as you would expect. There is some of the standard fluff to fill out a few tables that aren't really related to guns, but there weren't too many of those. There were a lot of modern firearms, AR parts, Old West style firearms, military surplus, ammo, tables specializing in Garands or M1 carbines, with all the pieces and parts you could want, divided by manufacturer, etc. If you have an interest in it, you can probably find it, or at least something close to it, at this show. They also had a fair share of militaria and other collectibles, including wherever that is exactly, as well as someone who took a wood-burning kit to a perfectly good SKS stock. One more suggestion I have for attending this show, if your strategy is to go through the entire show and go back to any potential deals that were not good enough to just grab right away, be sure to write down the aisle numbers and what you were interested in, as it will make it quicker than trying to recall exactly where that thing was from like 3 hours ago. For me specifically, if you've watched this channel, I like military surplus, and there were a lot of tables with military surplus items spread throughout the show, and there were some okay deals that I did type into a notes app to check back with at the end. However, by the time I had finished my show walkthrough, the few tables I had wanted to check back on had already packed up and left when I went to see them. Something of note from this last show is that someone apparently indeed right into the roof. That was a gun show first for me. I heard a loud boom and everyone kind of looked at each other, and then a few minutes later there was an announcement saying that the noise we heard was why items put out by vendors are supposed to be unloaded and preferably tied down. From what I heard from someone who was close by, a table had something loaded but not in the chamber, and someone looking at the firearm racked it and pulled the trigger point up, making a nice hole in the roof. Like most gun shows, there are some deals, but there are also a lot of items that are priced higher than you could find elsewhere. Just because there's more doesn't necessarily mean it's better. And though I think sometimes smaller gun shows give you a better shot of getting a really good deal on something, there's something to be said about getting together with people and going to a really big gun show and spending all day just looking at firearms. They have this show twice a year, every April and November. There's no parking fee, and the entry fee is only $10, which is cheaper than my local gun show, which is obviously smaller than this one. So if you're anywhere nearby, it's definitely worth going to, but I don't know if it's worth making a big trip out of it, or at least not frequently. Anyways, those are my thoughts on the Tulsa Gun Show. Let me know if you've ever been by that gun show, or if you have thoughts and experiences from it as well, or if you think there are other gun shows that are bigger or better that I should check out sometime. Let me know in the comments. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content. Thanks for watching.